I can definitely see why a lot of Final Fantasy VII fans love Crisis Core. Zack Faye is a really lovable character with a heart of gold. It's just impossible to dislike the guy. And it gave us a reimagined, sort of modernized look at the world of FF7 long before the remake series. But me?
Gungaga.
I did not care for
Crisis Core.
What?
Did not care for
Crisis Core.
How can you even say that, Dad?
didn't like it.
This is not a review. I just want to focus on story here because although I found the gameplay look tedious and repetitive, and I didn't really feel the luck-based roulette combat system or the dull fetch quests with Aerith in the slums, I could have looked past all that stuff if the game had a good story and had been a good prequel. Instead, I feel like it, ironically, has a bit of an identity crisis. As it says on the box, Crisis Core reveals the events leading up to Final Fantasy VII. Not a problem in itself, of course, but I do think it's maybe where our problems begin. We already saw the events leading in the Final Fantasy VII in Final Fantasy VII. This isn't a Breaking Bad
Lalo didn't send you? No, Lalo!
or a Red Dead Redemption,
I left the gang after the gang left me.
where hints of the past are vague enough for a prequel to flesh out with its own self-contained story. This is a direct prologue to a game where revealing past events was already a pretty major part of the story. So they needed to craft a new story that led into the events that led into FF7. Again, not inherently bad, but I'm just not a fan of the approach they took. The First Soldier is a more recent prequel that jumps back in time to a young Sephiroth. It's also imprisoned in a grindy mobile game, but that's beside the point. Because of its distance from the original storyline, it has plenty of leg room to tell us an entirely new story and a focus on entirely new characters and lore without being tied to an existing plot. At the same time, the elements it adds feel like they belong in the world. They don't add any, armored angel dogs or clone armies.
Genesis copies again!
But let's not get ahead of ourselves. Most of all, it just stands on its own as a good story. I wouldn't say any of that for Crisis Core. It wants to be a standalone story which adds original characters and invents new lore, but it also wants to directly tie into and set up its source material. So it ends up just sort of shoehorning its own shit into an already existing narrative. Enter Gay Sephiroth. Genesis, a defected soldier.
There is no hate, only joy. For
Here
you
he goes.
are loved by the goddess.
This guy fucking sucks!
And Angeal, Zack's mentor, who soon defects as well. Angeal is the better of the two characters, thanks to his tragic fatherly relationship with Zack.
This is for you.
But he's still held back by some extremely cheesy and repetitive dialogue.
Embrace your dreams. If you want to be a hero, you need to have dreams and honor.
Okay.
Honor can be quite a burden. I have to protect my honor. I am perfect. A perfect monster. A monster's objective is usually world domination or revenge. Then what should an angel fight for, Zack? What do angels dream of?
As for Genesis,
Ripples form on the water's surface.
ugh,
The wandering soul knows no rest.
the guy's obsessed with the in-universe play Loveless, and most of his dialogue's just reciting it in the most insufferable, pretentious way he possibly can.
Even if the morrow is barren of promises, nothing shall forestall my return.
Just shut up, you idiot!
There is no hate, only joy. For you are beloved, my friend, by the goddess. The fates are cruel. Hero, there are no dreams. Your desire is the bringer of life of the goddess. Is lost. Brings
Shut the fuck up, you cunt!
Loveless again.
So this is where the shoehorning comes in. These mad lads are very much the focus of the story. There's a lot of awfully written melodrama between Zack and his conflicted mentor.
What am I fighting for?
As he and Sephiroth fight Genesis, who, with the help of disgraced Professor Hollander, is wreaking havoc in his quest for revenge against Shinra by creating a seemingly endless army of Genesis clones.
Begun. The Clone War has.
Genesis copies again.
And Angeal clones,
Holy Jesus. What is that? What the fuck is that?
which are just monsters with Angeal's face on them.
My cells can absorb genetic traits and pass them along to others.
This is so fucking stupid.
What the fuck does any of this have to do with Final Fantasy VII? Well, these guys were Genova hybrids before Sephiroth.
Project G. Or should I say, Project Jillian, the woman implanted with Genova cells.
So, if most of the dialogue is the corniest of corny anime melodrama, the rest is Project G-related exposition, and it's just really not interesting.
Contrary to this report, Genesis showed clear signs of change.
Degrading?
Not only
Genesis, who had her genes mapped onto him during the fetal stage. But you, Angeal, you were actually bred inside Jillian's body.
Oh my god, who the hell cares?
Besides just not being very compelling, this whole Project G plot adds a lot of shit that just feels really out of place in both the story and just in general in the world of Final Fantasy VII. Like how they really ramped up the whole angel thing. Like, yes, I get it. Sephiroth had a wing in Advent Children for like 10 seconds, but that was after becoming a final boss god right at the end of the original game. And it was the spiritual power he siphoned from the life stream that let him do that, not Genova's cells. She was a parasitic alien life form. Her cells never made anyone just sprout an angel wing at any point in the original game. Like, these characters have the one wing, and every time they move, there's just feathers flying around everywhere. It's as if a fucking bird just exploded. The Angeal monsters look like fucking Bayonetta angels. They have his face just ornately sculpted onto them, but with his gold linings and stuff. Then there's that armored Angeal dog thing I mentioned earlier, which again looks like a Bayonetta enemy. By the way, that thing just chilled with Aerith at the church for 4 years before FF7. She never mentioned that in the original. Then there's director Lazard here, who was injected with Angeal's cells at some point. So by the end, he just becomes an Angeal clone with white hair and with a white light suit in a way, you know.
Like an angel?
Oh, yeah, there's also the literal fucking goddess Minerva.
What? What are you talking about?
To be clear, she's not a summon like Ifrit or Shiva. She's just a literal goddess of this planet who comes to Genesis through the life stream. What is happening? Where the fuck was she during the original game? Or Advent Children? Or the criminally overhated Dirge of Cerberus? Then there's the Genesis clones. They're not monsters like Angeals, and they're not like Hojo's victims from the original game, where Sephiroth can manifest himself through one of them from the life stream with their Genova cells or whatever. There's just thousands of perfect human copies of this poncy motherfucker, just not as strong, running around attacking Midgar and shit. This cunt was even set up to be the next big villain post Sephiroth. We first saw him teased at the end of Dirge of Cerberus, and the last we see of him here in Crisis Core is him being cryptically taken away to set up that tease. Well, thank this apparent goddess that this cliffhanger never cleared out, because
Oh, brother, this guy stinks!
this stuff is all just so bizarre in the world of Final Fantasy VII. It doesn't fit at all. It's just so jarring. The new characters, the writing, the lore and world building, it all just absolutely pales in comparison to the original game, which wouldn't be so bad if it wasn't trying to be a direct part of that game and to tie all this nonsense in with the world and characters we know. Project G is the backbone of this story. They really expected to be invested in it. It's the whole mystery you spend the first half of the game unraveling. It's the reason Genesis and his army exists that are on this rampage. And to add retcon to injury, it's the reason we go to Nibelheim and the events of FF7 even begin. As you probably know already, FF7's story is set into motion when Sephiroth finds his supposed mother's name up in lights at the Nibelheim marble reactor / monster storage. Suddenly, he starts to understand things. Why he's always felt so different. Special, even. Why he never knew his parents or had a hometown. Why the dastardly Professor Hojo was so invested in him. He's hit with the realization that he could be an experiment, engineered as a weapon like monsters in these tanks. The idea shakes him to his core, and of course the Genova cells that make up most of that core begin to awaken. And the rest is history. Let's rewind and add the context of Crisis Core.
Let's not do that, please.
A few months before Nibelheim, Zack and Sephiroth learn about Project Retcon. I mean Project G.
It was Hollander's experiment. Project G gave birth to the man we know as Genesis.
Sephiroth, you want to do something to me, eh? But then, who will stop Genesis and Angeal's degradation?
Come.
Wait a minute!
Well, before Nibelheim, Sephiroth learns that the only two soldiers who can compete with him, the only people he's ever really bonded with, and who are only a few months older than him, so were conceived around the time he was, were super soldiers genetically created by Shinra. I do wonder if Shinra's most prodigal, superhumanly powerful soldier, who was felt different and even special his entire life, who Shinra has propped up as their perfect hero, and who never knew his parents or had a hometown, and was born in the same time frame as these two super soldier experiments, will connect any dots at all here as to his own nature.
No.
Nope. Apparently not. Not even a little Genova cell flare-up. Nothing. He somehow remains totally oblivious right up until Nibelheim. What was this shocking existential crisis for Sephiroth?
Could it be that I was created the same way?
Has become,
Oh my fucking god!
No fucking shit!
you're already known for months now about Shinra's shenanigans. How have you just now considered that maybe you're genetically engineered too? But, it gets worse. He still never really puts the pieces together. They retcon Genesis into the scene to have him fucking Genova spleen.
The Genova Project was the term used for all experiments relating to the use of Genova cells. Genova Project
This is so boring.
to Angeal, and monsters like myself. Genova Project S used the remains of countless failed experiments.
This is Basil Exposition from British Intelligence.
Joe, don't tell.
And then to recite more stupid fucking poetry, obviously.
When the war of the beasts brings about... Shut it!
Seriously? This is the same intelligent, shrewd Sephiroth who was able to start putting the pieces together from the name Genova and these monsters. This is the same man who was always known somehow that he's different. This is the same man who, once he had this horrifying idea at all, locked himself away in Shinra Manor and did an any percent speed run of the library, obsessing over the truth. And in order to prop up this terrible terrible new villain, the story makes him remain absolutely oblivious to the truth as it stares him in the face for months before Nibelheim, until Genesis has to spell it out for him.
Poor little Sephiroth. You've never actually met your mother. You've only been told her name.
What did you say? Like they don't already know that? Are you saying that they're stupid?
Only then can Sephiroth turn and the story of FF7 kick off. Every time I saw Sephiroth on screen after he learns about Project G was just so frustrating. Like, come on, how is this whole situation not tipped you off yet? So his identity crisis feels less convincing, and so the breakdown that follows feels less justified. It's no longer this big revelation about his true nature that just hits him like a Midgar train from left field and suddenly has him questioning his own nature. He had been investigating genetic experiments and Shinra super soldiers for months at this point. It was staring him in the face. And actually, it's not just Sephiroth. Zack and the Turks were investigating this as well. Did none of them stop and think about how this ridiculously powerful super soldier with a mysterious past may be linked to these experiments? And wait, if the main thing Genesis was after was Sephiroth's cells to cure his degradation.
Sephiroth, I need your help. My body is continuing to degrade. Share your cells with me.
Why does it take him until Nibelheim, which is like 2 years after the start of the story, to tell him the truth and to ask to share his cells?
Why is everyone so fucking stupid?
In trying to, I guess, flesh out Sephiroth's origins, they just ended up overcomplicating it and making him feel less special. Sephiroth, the cosmic anomaly, the corrupted biological miracle, who naturally felt that he was alone in the universe and chosen and special. Something that was confirmed to him by this revelation has been retconned to be version 3.0 of the Genova project. Third time's the charm, apparently. Professor Hojo just copied and fixed up another scientist's work. So up to now, all Crisis Core has done to lead up to Final Fantasy VII is bloat the shit out of the lore with a load of unnecessary, unfitting plot elements and characters who were never so much as mentioned when there's one thing it should instead have focused on completely. One obvious, glaring aspect that they put on the box. Let's get to that. If there's one thing a Zack prequel leading right into FF7 should have focused on, it was Cloud. Specifically, his and Zack's relationship. I can't stress this enough. Zack's death causing Cloud's total psychological collapse is the bridge from Crisis Core to FX7. It is the catalyst for the entire story. It's how Cloud ends up at Midgar. It's how Sephiroth uses him to almost end the world. And it's the final piece of Cloud's past and his character arc. If you played FF7, you play Crisis Core knowing the entire game is leading up to it. Zack was the biggest, most crucial missing piece of Cloud's past. His death hit him so hard that Cloud.exe just stopped working. Like his mind just completely shut down. And then when Tifa forces an emergency reboot, he does so as a mishmash of Zack and Cloud. I can't stress this enough. That's how much Zack meant to him, and it is how well he knew Zack. He was able to emulate his personality. He was able to emulate mannerisms and share memories. He was able to use the Buster Sword just like Zack does, despite never having used a sword before because he was never a soldier. We're touching on a problem with a lot of prequels. Some things are just better left to the imagination. But if you're going to dive into this past, if you're going to set up this massively traumatic event that defines the story and feeling of Final Fantasy VII, It should be the core of your story. Yet, here we are focusing on
Project G.
Project G. Project G.
Project G. Project Julian.
Project Genesis.
Project S.
Genesis.
Genetic traits. Traits cannot be copied onto others.
De novo cells.
Cells with your genes. Degrade.
Degradation.
Degrade.
The fetal stage actually bred inside Jillian's body.
Copies.
Genetic traits. Angel.
Monster.
Perfect monster in
Honor.
The goddess. The gift of the goddess. The gift of the goddess.
Oh, and by the way, Cloud Strife is here too. Zack's actual death is really well done. It's beautifully brutal, if that isn't a totally morbid thing to say. But the setup for Cloud's resulting identity crisis is just almost non-existent. Cloud's breakdown and amnesia is the result of all of the events of Crisis Core that leads up to FF7. Was that not what we were supposed to be doing here? And yet, it's the most rushed, oh, by the way, part of this whole story. These guys have one unmissable meeting before Nibelheim 1, and then a tiny missable NPC interaction in Junon. Their first meeting, honestly, may be the most rushed, forced friendship I've ever seen in fiction.
At least someone's keeping up.
They bond, apparently, over the fact that they're both country boys.
Well, I'm a country boy too.
Even though that's most of the world of FF7, like everywhere but Midgar. But, okay.
From where? Nibelheim. How about you?
Say the line!
Me? Gungaga.
The whole interaction is less than a minute and suddenly they're the best of buds.
But there's a reactor there, right? A Mako reactor outside Midgar usually means nothing else out there. Good news, Sung! Me and Cloud here are both backwater experts. Oh yeah!
What the hell is that?
Job done. With how just generally awkward and weird the dialogue is.
Oh yeah!
This whole little interaction just feels really forced. Just weird. They have no chemistry at all. They don't even do the whole mission together. They meet, walk up a short mountain trail to a base, and then are separated for the rest of the mission. You may or may not see him briefly later in Junon where he complains about feeling sick, but that's it. Next time we meet, months later, we act as if they're like lifelong bros.
The bestest friends you've ever seen.
What, Cloud? Together again, huh? Alright.
And it's off to Nibelheim.
By the way, where are we going?
To Nibelheim.
And the rest of their screen time together is a version of what we already saw in FF7. Except now Cloud plays set and fiddle to the rest of this Genesis shit. It's like, okay, well, we got that obligatory stuff out of the way. Time to get back to what people really want to see.
No. When the war of the beasts brings about the world's end, the goddess descends.
Cloud generally just sits there like a good boy, high as a kite on Marco, while Zack goes off and deals with whatever this is.
Your cellular structure has already mutated. I merely borrowed some cells from Genesis.
Blah, blah, blah. Backstory stuff.
The gift of the goddess, the degradation process.
I know. I got it. I got the concept.
Who the fuck is this asshole?
This is no way near enough to set up the catastrophic, almost world-ending, central to the story identity crisis Cloud suffers after Zack's death. These guys barely fucking knew each other. The plot had a lot of other stuff going on, and so their story just ends up being squeezed in between it all. It feels like an afterthought, honestly. Yes, they spend almost a year together after escaping the lab, but remember, Cloud is fucking out at it almost the entire time. The guy's barely even conscious. It's not until that last day truck ride where he seems to start even becoming aware of what's around him and we start to get glimpses from his perspective. And that's backed up by the original game when his flashbacks only include leaving the lab, the truck ride, and Zack's death. He doesn't recall any of the stuff in between. He certainly never remembers any of these Genesis encounters. Yes, Zack still sacrifices his life to protect Cloud. I'm not saying his death wouldn't have any effect on him at all, but we just have not explained the total psychological collapse and adopting Zack's identity and memories. The work to set that up should have been done throughout the story. It should have been the entire focus of the story, because it is the event that leads up to FF7. As is, they just didn't know each other that fucking well because we were too busy with Project G. Imagine if the Star Wars prequel trilogy just didn't really focus on Anakin. If they just didn't really bother to set up his climactic story and theme-defining fall to the dark side. Imagine there's none of these scenes of his dark, violent side, where we see the hold his anger and his grief and his fear have over him. We don't see his mother or her death. We don't see that he was taken too old for a Jedi youngling and already has attachments and worldly experience, and ends up apprenticed to an inexperienced teacher. Instead, we focus solely on Obi-Wan, and he barely ever interacts with Anakin. Imagine if instead the trilogy focused on some tacked-on plot about midichlorians and constant melodrama between Obi-Wan, Qui-Gon and Dooku as Obi-Wan fights to stop Dooku, whose dialogue is mostly just quoting that opera from Episode 3, and Anakin just kind of appears for a brief introductory cameo in the middle of Episode 2, and Episode 3 is just about Obi-Wan mopping up what's left of Dooku's mess, with Anakin just kind of there sometimes. That is what Crisis Core feels like to me. It's like a prequel that forgets it's a prequel, a story focused on doing its own thing and occasionally remembering that it's supposed to be leading up to this. Okay, I've spent all this time whining about what I don't like about this story, so it's only right that I make myself useful and make some suggestions. First off, let me just touch on Aerith, and I say touch on because I think Crisis Core did okay with it. Sure, her brief screen time and couple of miserable fetch quests shows a flower wagon up the would be pretty underwhelming if you are coming off of Remake, which talks about Zack being her first love.
As who?
The first guy I ever loved.
But in the original, she says they weren't serious and they just liked each other for a while. And I think Crisis Core covers that just fine. Weird new pets aside, it was nice to see her again. They have some nice chemistry and some sweet moments. Zack even meets her by falling through the church roof, which plays into the whole idea of Cloud later emulating Zack without even realizing it, and Aerith seeing Zack in Cloud. Nice. Look, I'm not going to pretend to be a writer or a game developer. I'm just a fan of this world and these characters with some ideas of what I would have liked to see. So here's my opening. We've still opened with Zack in VR training on the train, mostly because, like falling through the church roof, this later feeds into the idea of Cloud emulating Zack. It plays out pretty much the same as it does in the actual game, but we don't see Angeal just yet. And we don't fight a monster at the end of it, but one of the soldiers instead comes at Zack with a sword. We see he's not great with the sword, and we beat him pretty easily, maybe in one massive hit with the Linnet Brig tutorial to show the massive difference in skill between these two fighters, and his helmet falls off to reveal Cloud. We learn that this is an infantryman and a friend who Zack often sneaks into the soldier training room for some secret, off-the-record, totally not allowed training. He pulls his defeated, shy friend back up to his feet and tells him not to give up, to embrace his dreams. Then the VR simulation starts to fall apart, and in walks Angeal to scold Zack for letting a grunt into the soldier training room, but then once Cloud is gone, he quietly praises his faith in his friends and his honor. Bam. Tutorial is over and we've already established Cloud and Zack as good friends. We've cemented Zack as the big brother figure, the brave and confident soldier who Cloud so badly wants to be. And we've still introduced Angeal as Zack's wise, conflicted but honourable mentor. Having Cloud and Zack already know each other means that he's already available to get caught up in whatever adventure awaits his friend Zack. He gets to be there as a main character who is along for the ride with Zack as we deal with the fall and eventual death of Angeal, as we deal with Genesis and his copies. If you really want to keep that plot, whatever adventure we go with, it cements the bond between these two brothers in arms, despite the total difference in skill and rank. Beginning the game with Zack showing faith in Cloud and being the one to believe in him and to want to see him get stronger, rather than just feeling obliged to show their first ever meeting and doing a bit of a rushed job of it, would add so much more emotional weight and meaning to that ending. It would add so much more emotional weight where Zack's faith in Cloud is vindicated when Cloud finds the courage and strength to finish off Sephiroth. Not to mention, some sneaky sword training would maybe go some way in explaining how a guy who was never a soldier is suddenly an expert with a Buster Sword. We can see Cloud as an NPC from time to time, rather than these nameless officers. Maybe he's in the Shinra building or out patrolling Midgar, and maybe some of the Limit Break cutscenes can flesh out their history. Maybe they met when Cloud would sneak onto the soldier floor or timidly follow soldiers around Midgar from a distance, like he did Tifa back home, to watch them train and to dream about one day being one of them, until Zack catches him one day and, being all for embracing your dreams and just being a stand-up guy, decides to take him under his wing and help him out. It should remain Zack's story. He is the main character, he's the leader, and I think one of the best things the game has going for it is this relationship with Angeal. Angeal is almost a sort of Qui-Gon Jinn character, where he's this wise, honourable warrior, and the moment you see him, you know he's kind of probably fucked. I mean, he has the Buster Sword that he knows Zack ends up with, so there's a clear setup there for Zack to inherit the role of mentor to Cloud. But that doesn't really play out. Cloud is just a side character and, you know, a bit of a buddy. The closest moment they have to actually bonding is in the inn, where they talk about Tifa. But even that's just a couple of teenagers talking about who they have a crush on. And then Zack gets back to brooding about Angeal. It's not really anything substantial between them. So I'll stop laughing as a story writer there. I'm really not. That's why I'm not going into the details of any potential alternative story here. I'm just kind of spitting out ideas. But hopefully I've at least communicated why Crisis Core just didn't really do it for me. Maybe the immediate lead-up to FF7, outside of what we already saw about Nibelheim, is one of those things that was just best left to the imagination. And maybe a prequel about Zack would have been better off taking a First Soldier approach, where we jump back in time to a self-contained story, which also serves the main story by just fleshing out Zack as a character. And for what it's worth, that's the best part of Crisis Core. I have no complaints about Zack himself. He's a great character, just a really, really likable protagonist. And he also has that youthful confidence that came across in the original game. His characterization stands out as the single best thing about this game for me. And on that positive note, I think I'll end. If you've actually sat there and listened to me blag for half an hour about this, thank you so much. I didn't think I'd ever make a video like this. It's very different from my EI slop videos, I'm sure many would call them, just where I sort of write these silly little conversations in order to get my point across. But for this one, I thought I'd try just sitting and ranting and editing it together and seeing how it went. Definitely was not expecting it to be so long. I guess I had a lot more to say than I originally thought. So if anybody out there at all got any enjoyment from this, what the fuck is wrong with you? Have you nothing better to do? But in all seriousness, thank you so much.
Gungaga.